Counselor Accents Podcast. Two school counselors who love their jobs. Oh, and they happen to have Southern accents too. Bless their hearts.
I'm Laura Rankhorn.
And I'm Kim Crumbly. And together we are Counselor Accents, two school counselors who we know what you're going through.
You got to say the trenches.
We're in the trenches with you every day.
Just say we're in the trenches with you.
Just start again. I got tickled when you said,
I'm Laura Rankhorn.
And I'm Kim Crumbly. And together we are Counselor Accents, two school counselors who are in the trenches with you.
We know what you're going through because we're living it every single day.
Laura. I'm so glad that you are here with me and that you're alive.
Oh, my goodness.
You are alive.
I am telling you, it's been a journey.
It has been a journey for our listeners who may not know, and believe me, she's tried to let everybody know. Laura was recently put into the hospital, and she was there for a long time. She was there for a week.
You know,
and
in this day and age, that is a long time because you can't have a baby and 30 minutes later they're sending you home. So
anything.
It's kind of a big deal to be in the hospital for a week.
It is a big deal. So tell us about, I would like to tell my viewpoint, but I want to, since you're the star of this story, I'm going to let you tell what happened.
Okay. I am not one for attention, unlike some that are hosting this podcast with me. I'm
not the one, you guess. Okay. Is that what you're saying? Okay.
And I don't love going to the doctor. I don't love going to the emergency room, but it happened upon about midnight and I was writhing on the bathroom floor. So it was a little bit dramatic here at my house. So I ended up dragging myself to the emergency room. Fortunately, it's just like 5 minutes down the road. I thought we had just gotten back from a cruise and I thought, surely I have just gotten some kind of water in my mouth that you're not supposed to get in your mouth. You know, I thought I'll get antibiotics. I will get some fluids and I'll be back at work by noon. And so I let my principal know, hey, I'm in the emergency room. I'm not going to be on time, but I'll be in as soon as I can. And that's not the case. They kept me for a week. It turns out I had an abdominal abscess. So, they said, you need to get somebody here. We're about to take you to surgery. Cause like I said, I just drove myself and I was like, what? Cause I have very few expendable organs left, Kim. There is not a lot.
No. And I love the way you're prettying it up. Her bowel exploded basically.
I had a perforated bowel with an abdominal abscess. Yes. I
have enjoyed saying bowel so much.
It's one of my life rules not to use the word bowel on the podcast. I just feel like that's.
I understand.
It's just crude. From any point on, like it's fine for us to announce it that one time, but from this point forward, I will beep it out. If you say the word bowel, I will beep it out in editing.
You can say any other word you want to say, but don't you dare say. Oh, okay. Go right ahead with you.
That's going to be a beep.
Go right. Okay.
So yeah, that's about it.
Your breath exploded, and okay,
yeah, that's about it.
And no, you don't have many. You don't have many organs. It's like, how many times have you called me? Like I get sick all the time. Like you know that. Like I've got COVID. I've got the flu. I've got strep throat. You don't have those things ever.
Yeah.
I mean, we could have breathed on each other and you won't catch it.
I'm
like, how are you not getting this?
I can lick the dashboard that you have thrown up on. That's so disgusting. I wish I hadn't said that.
Well, we've already said so.
There should
you
be a disclaimer. I don't get sick. We shared the whole car together when you had strep throat. We presented together for 6 hours. You were breathing all over me and I didn't get strep throat. But by George,
you don't.
Something's going to blow.
You'll blow an organ in half a second. You will blow an organ.
I'm going to blow up.
Well, how many times have you called me in the middle of the night? I'm over here and they're taking out my gallbladder. It's exploded. And I'm like, you have weird.
I'm like a cat with 9 lives and I'm on like number 7. So I just don't know how many more times I can blow something big and survive. It's,
Well, so yes, and so you ended up being. They told you what that you had and an abscess, and you end up in the hospital, and
and I couldn't get in touch with you, which is no
no,
surprise.
because you're never going to get in touch with me. You know that I was getting texts from people like everybody going, you know, Laura's, and I never even saw those. I
You
went
didn't
until
see them.
later because I called you and I said, "Hey, what are you doing?
I tried
I'm
calling
in
you
the
multiple.
hospital."
Yeah, I tried calling you multiple times that morning. You were one of my number one calls because you're
Good,
on my tree chain, my tree phone tree. You are at the top. And I
good.
tried
I would
calling
hope
you,
so.
could not get in touch with you.
Mm-mm,
I finally
mm-mm.
sent you a text saying, "Hey, call me. I'm in the hospital." So you call and you're
Mm.
like very up, like, "Hey, what you doing?" And I'm like, "Well, have
Did
you
you have a
seen
good
my
weekend?
text? Have you seen my
Mm,
text?" And you're like, "No, why?
mm.
What's going on?" And as it turns out, there I was, just
There you were,
on life support,
getting
basically.
ready for surgery because they said
At
we're
that
going
time,
to
yes.
do surgery.
Yes. Fortunately, I did not have to have surgery. They decided to just keep me on antibiotics for a week. I'm still on antibiotics even now. And I would like to tell you, these are the worst antibiotics I've ever had in my life.
Mm,
I'm on them 24 hours a day. And
mm,
um, I my mouth tastes like throw up all the time. Every food I
mm,
taste tastes like throw up. I probably should beep that out too
mm.
because that's gross.
Well, it's just life.
It's
It's just
life.
life. And sometimes life is gross. So that's okay. But please talk about how I was like Mother Teresa, like I
Okay.
ran to your side,
Okay.
sobbing,
So
threw myself on the bed.
you came, I
You
was
told me there
still
was a 30% chance you might die. Go ahead.
okay. I was still in the emergency room. They were telling me to call whoever mattered because
Mm,
I was going into surgery. You rushed my bedside there in the emergency room, which honestly was a little bit embarrassing because there's a limit on the number of people that you can have in there. Again, I'm not one for attention. You love attention, so you dramatically threw
mm-mm,
yourself at my feet. It was
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
embarrassing, but there was
mm-hmm,
one
mm-hmm.
day you came. I believe you came to the hospital every single day that you were
I
able.
did.
There was
No,
one
every
day,
day. Oh, we had that snowstorm
yeah, you weren't able to make it,
and
but
I didn't get to.
you were there in spirit. But there was one day that I was very tearful. And because I was ready to go home, I was afraid I was going to have to be by myself overnight. And I couldn't even, I should probably beep this out too, but I couldn't even like walk to the bathroom by myself. So,
I'm pretty sure that's okay to say that. I
okay.
don't think you'll have to beat that out. After
Okay.
everything else that we've said, and you're going to beat that out?
Right.
Okay.
Right. You're right. So I called you. Actually, I didn't even call you. I sent you a text. I said, I can't call right now. I can't talk on the phone, but I need you. And within 20
Mm-hmm,
minutes, which is the amount of time it takes
mm-hmm,
to get from your school to my hospital, you threw the
mm-hmm,
door open. All I can think of is like
mm-hmm.
Darkwing Duck from that cartoon from like back in the 90s. That's what you looked like when you threw that door open. I think you had on a cape of some sort, either that or a big coat. And there you were, standing in the doorway like a hero. You rushed to my bedside. Um,
I did. I
you
did.
even
That's all
had to
true.
you had to run get nurses for me because at one point the IV came out of my arm or something happened.
You're bleeding and crying, and
Yeah, you took
yes,
care
it
of me,
was. And the snowstorm was coming. And so it was awful. So I was like preparing to stay out the storm with you
which I
with
wish
no
you
change
had.
of clothes, no food.
In hindsight,
I
I wish
know.
we had done that.
Yes. But your husband finally made it.
Insisted.
And so
He, bless
I
him,
was kicked.
he was taking our kids to one place, driving to Tennessee to drop our dog that won't die. And I'm sorry if you're listening and you like animals, but he's 15 years old and I'm ready for him to let go and let God, and he won't do it. So we
Well,
could,
I meant, come on, in your defense, like there is always something I mean, he's just falling apart. I
and I'm
mean,
like, it
like
can't be long now. But then he rallies
he's
and
like
everybody's
you.
like,
He's just
like,
he
hey, oh
just keeps
my gosh.
throwing body parts.
That's true. And so, yeah, so he had to drive him to Tennessee. Yeah, so he had been all over the place, running around. He's a saint. You're a saint.
I know it. I know it. I know it. But you are looking so much better and you're back at it and on the mend and they're going to send you for a colonoscopy and I get to go with
Why?
you because I'm
Why
an
are you
expert.
telling?
I'm an
That
expert.
is private
That's just
information.
life, Laura. People have
I'm not
colons.
I'm not at the colonoscopy age just yet. And here I am.
Well, guess what? You're doing it and I'm
I
going
do.
with you and it is
And
going to be it
we're
is one
gonna
of the
video
best
it.
experiences of my life.
We're gonna air it
It
on our
is one of
social
the
media.
best. We will. We'll do it live just like
Hoda? Is
Katie
it Hoda?
from the
Oh
Today
yeah.
Show.
Yeah.
Katie did it live. And anyway, so we'll do it live and it will save lives.
Yes, it will save lives. You know, we've got Geoff Heckman on our podcast today, and he's probably going to ask not to ever come on again after this intro.
I think everybody has to do their tour of duty and that we need to have I survived the
Yeah.
podcast t-shirts made. And
Oh, that's
so,
good. That's a good idea.
yeah.
All right. So once we get those made, Geoff, we owe you an I Survived the Counselor Accents podcast shirt because this intro, you are so worthy of so much more than this intro. So I
Yeah.
apologize.
Yeah.
So let's talk about Geoff Heckman for a minute, shall we?
We shall.
So if you don't know who Geoff Heckman is, he was the past president for the Missouri School Counselor Association. He was Missouri's School Counselor of the Year in 2017, and he was an ASCA School Counselor of the Year finalist in 2018. He was on the ASCA Board of Directors, and he was the 2022-2023 ASCA Board Chairperson. So he is, I would say he's an up and comer, but he is like up and coming. Like he's up there.
Okay. I don't know what you're trying to say with that, but he is a pretty big deal. How about that?
There you go. He is a pretty big deal. So let's listen to what Geoff has to say. Kim, I feel like it's an old friend. Like I feel like we're here with an old friend just drinking coffee.
I know.
I mean, really, we haven't known him that long, but he's one of those people that we just instantly connected with. And it's so rare to find those people. And here we found one.
I know it. And I kept poking you. We were in Missouri
Uh-huh.
with these great Missourians. Is that what you call yourself, Missourians? Or did I just make that up?
Yeah, sure. That's
Missourians?
fine. We'll go with
Okay.
that.
He's like,
Yeah.
whatever.
I didn't know if there was another thing. So anyway, and you walked into the room and I started poking Laura going, that's him.
And I'm like, please don't embarrass me. Please.
That's him. He's famous. Famous. So anyway, and then we got the nerve up to sidle up to you and talk to you.
Because you have been on our list of podcasts, like our wish list of podcasts for a long time. And so we were so honored to get to meet you in person. So Geoff Heckman is our guest of the day. And so why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about yourself?
Well, sure. Well, first of all, thank you for saying those things about me. Like that just makes me feel all bubbly and tingly inside to hear people say things like that. And I agree with you. Like it was from the moment that we started talking to each other, it was just like we've been friends forever, right?
Yes.
So, well, I am a high school counselor in Missouri. And so actually everybody came to see me this summer when they came in for the ASCA conference because the Kansas City airport is like 5 minutes from my house. And so I'm just north of Kansas City in Platte City, Missouri at Platte County High School. And I have been a school counselor this is year 22. It's actually my 29th year in education. And so I've been working with students for a long time. But a few years ago, I got involved a little bit more with school counseling associations and school counselor leadership. And so I've done some work with the Missouri School Counselor Association, serving in leadership for them. And then also was on the ASCA Board of Directors for 3 years and served as the chair of the board for 1 year. And currently, in addition to the high school counseling gig, I'm also serving as the coordinator for partnership engagement for the Missouri School Counselor Association, and am also an adjunct instructor for Missouri Baptist University. And so,
Goodness, I'm
a
worn
couple of
out.
things, it's just a few things going on, but
Yeah.
also have been married for 20, this is year 24 that we've been married. And to my wonderful wife, Emily, and we have two daughters, Kendall and Maya. So this is Kendall's senior year, having lots of fun watching her do all of those things. And then my daughter, Maya, is a sophomore. So that's me.
Wow.
That's a lot.
That is a lot. I
And it
feel
makes
like
me
we need to
smile.
take a
What a great
commercial.
life.
We need to take a commercial break just so I can take a
Oh.
deep breath and like rest from all the things he's doing.
So, well, it's good to stay busy. You don't want too much downtime.
That's my philosophy. It is not my husband's. B12, I call him, because he has to have a shot just to get up and get going around. So his is, what can I get by with? I am joking. Not really. So 22 years as a school counselor, that shocks me. You don't look old enough, but 22 years, you've had to have seen a lot of changes in school counseling. Like what? I didn't mean to scroll down this path, but anytime I talk to anybody who's been in school counseling that long, I'm just interested. What is interested? What are some things that you have seen that have been the big changes, I guess?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think you hit on the most important thing, Kim, there is that I look so young. And
There you
nobody
go.
would nobody would think that I've been at it this long. And you know,
Oh,
there
gosh.
there are days that I feel like, counseling wasn't the same until Dr. Geisber's came along. But I've not been counseling quite that long. But there,
You're so
yeah, there
funny.
are a lot of things that have changed. And I think that like the biggest dent in all of this was when we went through COVID and the pandemic. And up until that point, like we were still able to take a focus on looking at those post-secondary pieces and looking at the academic tie-in and still having a focus on the whole child. But then once that came about, like there was so much more that was important in terms, or I should say, came to the surface really in terms of mental health for our students, but also having an importance and a focus on culturally sustaining school counseling, and just making sure that we were taking care of all of our students and really looking at their backgrounds. And so that I feel like has become the biggest change over the years in everything that we've been doing as school counselors. Um, I do remember, oh man, I hate to bring this up so soon into the podcast, but I do remember the very first time that my administrator said, "Hey, this student needs a 504 plan. Can you take care of that?" And, like up until that point, it didn't even exist. And it was one student I was a middle school counselor at the time. It was one student in our building of like 650 kids. And so I was like, okay, I don't even know what I'm getting into at this point, right? And to look at where we are now, where school counselors are just fighting as much as they can to be able to say, I need to run a school counseling program, and you're trying to put me in charge of something that I've just got no training on whatsoever. So yeah, there's been
I hear people clapping
Oh, I know.
over radios and homes and schools across America.
Yeah, it's like that. I feel like has become one of the biggest things when we start talking about advocating for school counseling programs. I feel like that has become one of the biggest things that school counselors across this country are really having to advocate for, and that is their appropriate role serving on a 504 team and not just taking it over because there's nobody else to do it.
Well said. And it's one of those things that I want to jump up here on the soapbox, if I may, for 1 second with you. It is one of those things that I've always said, why am I doing this? Why am I? Yeah, we'll give you that. Yes, you can have that, and we'll do this and we'll do that. And you're right. I meant why am I the person that is saying you can have this or you can have that, and I'm in charge of this? And um, it's crazy. It is crazy. And Laura, don't you feel like we hear this more and more and more because these 504s are more prevalent than they've ever been?
Oh, absolutely. Yes. And I love that you're starting here. Actually, your topic that you were going to talk with us about today is being fearless in advocacy. And I think this is such a hot button. We hear it from counselors all over the nation. And so I think this is a great place to jump right in. So let's talk about the word fearless. Where did the idea of fearless when it comes to advocacy, where did that come from?
Well, for me, it really came in a place that just stems from the fact that I'm afraid of everything. And like, I don't like going into dark houses. Like, if my hand falls over the edge of the bed, I'm pulling it back in at night. Like, just there's a lot of things. I don't even want to get too close to the clown's mouth when I hit the ball through it. Like, there's a lot.
I am so in love with you. Go tell your wife right now. There's another woman that is absolutely in love with you. You're marking your sense of humor. Go. Sorry.
So I, I look at it from that place of that there's so many things that scare me. But as I started, so where it really came into my vernacular was that the year that I served as president for the Missouri School Counselor Association, our association management at that time, they were like, "Hey, we'll be nice enough to you that we'll let you help. We'll let you help set the theme for the conference." And I'm like, "Okay, this is really why I wanted to be president anyway, right?" And so I'm like, "Okay, well, what is this going to be?" And I was starting to hear more and more from people on social media talking about fearless being about not that you're not afraid of anything, but that being fearless really means that you're willing to step into fear. And as I started looking at myself and the things that I had taken on, like stepping into leadership roles alone, I just think that's tremendously scary.
Hmm.
And so knowing that I had said, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to see what's going to happen. And like, I even remember thinking about what if somebody runs against me and I lose, like
Yeah.
that's scary alone, right? And
Yeah.
so really wanted to take this mindset of, you know what, there's lots of things that scare us. But when it comes to advocating for your program, we really have to step into the fear of that, knowing that like it's not really as scary as we probably think that it is. That a lot of what we're really afraid about really happens in our mind, in the stories that we're making up about what's going to happen next. When I'm talking with students and they're feeling anxious about things that they've not encountered yet, one of the things that I ask them to focus on is I'll say, let's think about like the first time you ever wanted to ride a roller coaster. What was the scariest thing about thinking about riding a roller coaster for the very first time? And they were like, well, waiting in line, thinking about I'm about to get on this cart of death. Like, yes, that's what's so scary. And I said, then as soon as that ride ended for the first time and you got off of it, what did you want to do? I wanted to ride it again. Yeah, because it's not really as scary as what you're telling yourself it's going to be. And I find so many times that when we're talking about advocating for school counselors or school counseling programs, we start spinning the story for ourselves of what's going to happen when we do it. And we're terrified to actually advocate for the things that we know are right. And so my encouragement for school counselors is really, we have to step into that fear, that thing that scares us, so that we can find out that it's not like that at all. And then we really can advocate for our programs and we can advocate for ourselves. And when we're doing that, we're advocating for our students as well.
That is so profound. Isn't that such an aha moment, Kim?
It is. I was just thinking. I was just thinking about so many situations in life that can apply to.
Uh-huh.
For us as school counselors, um, I think that's one of the things when we're talking to people across the United States, school counselors, that they feel they're frustrated, and because it, but that if just to lay in that frustration, and we talk about this a lot, Laura and I, is it just leads to bitterness. It just leads to just getting out of the profession. But once you flip that story and you start stepping out and speaking up and doing the things that you need to do and growing, then that can help with that frustration and that fear. So I think it's easier for some people than it is for others, but everybody needs to take their program and make it important and share it. That's what we talk about a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do want to focus in on that. It is easier for some people to do than it is for others. And even I understand that too. I mean, you didn't always get the Geoff that you have in front of you today. Like there are certainly times where I was told we're not going to do that. And I went, okay, and walked away.
Yeah.
And so I do think it takes some time to build up that courage, but I think it takes even more time to build up that vulnerability to be able to go in and just have a conversation and say, I need to talk about this. I hear a lot of times from school counselors, Geoff, I just don't have the voice that you have. And, I look around and I'm like, well, what voice do I have? Like,
Yeah.
you have the same ability to talk that I have. And so what I tell people often is that there is a courage and a fearlessness that also happens in being vulnerable and being able to go in and speak to an administrator or a supervisor and to be able to say, listen, I'm really scared right now. Like, I'm afraid that you're going to be angry with me, or I'm afraid this isn't going to come out the right way. And I don't really know how to do this. And I think that really opens up the door to a conversation with somebody who, like, let's face it, if your administrator, supervisor, whoever it is that you're talking to, listens to all of that and goes, well, if you can't get it together, then get out of my office. I don't know that you want to work for that person anyway, right?
Right. Yeah. That's so
So
true.
I do think it creates an opportunity for them to be able to take a step back and go, okay, like, how do we approach this conversation together then? Because I don't want you to be afraid to talk to me. And all of the administrators that I've worked with, I've never had that sense from them that they wanted me to be afraid to come and talk to them about the things that I was really concerned about.
Yeah, I know that you've got to be thinking what I'm thinking, and that is how we talk about leadership so much. And we talk about the different styles of leaders and how we call it the bull style leader that comes in like they know everything, and they trample over everything, and they feel like they are owning it because they know so much, but really they are pushing people away. And what you're saying is, I love what you said about the vulnerability and just being honest and saying, "Hey, I'm scared about this. I need some help here." That is a true leader. And ASCA says that we're a leader. So as school counselors, we really don't have a choice. We automatically step into this leadership role. And you're telling us, I think you're giving us great keys on how to be those leaders.
Well, and 100%, you are a leadership, you're in leadership in that building. Like, I really look at it as that the tire where we are the spoke that connects to so many other things. And like, it's all running in and through us in the school building. And I think too, that what we have to understand is that sometimes there is fear in leadership. And that's not just true for us, but that's true for our supervisors and our administrators as well. And so one of the things that I often share with individuals is that you have to keep in mind your administrator may be afraid as well. Like, there are so many times that we come in and we speak to our administrators, our supervisors, the leaders in our district, and we want them to solve a problem. So let's use the 504 as an example, since we've already cracked that shell open, right? And so there are so many times I think that we come to them, we're like, listen, I'm not supposed to be serving as a case manager. Like, this isn't ethically appropriate for me to do, and we need to figure something out. And we look at that principal or the administrator and it's like, so fix it. And they're going, well, I don't know how to fix this. Like, I don't know what to do about it either. And sometimes I think we put them in positions of, I expect you to know the answer, and they just don't. And I think that sometimes what we see then is that when we're putting people into a position of leadership and we want them to have an answer that they don't have, then the response comes back with power. Like, I don't have the answer for you. So instead of looking bad here, I'm going to tell you what you have to do now, because I'm going to exert my power over you because I'm a leader. And we just don't want to put people into that place. And so I think we just have to keep in mind that our administrators may not have the answer to this either. And so, Kim, one of the questions you had asked was like, why am I doing this? And that's the question that I asked you. It's like, why aren't we doing this? Like, let's work together on this. And that's one of the things that I think that we can really do to empower the people who oversee us to help us find solutions together, is to say, listen, I don't know that we have one person in the building that can take this on. But I know that if we work together as a team and we each do our appropriate pieces of it, then together we can take it on, and it doesn't leave one person feeling like they're being burdened with the entire thing.
I like that, having that solution almost, or having that collaborative conversation with, instead of approaching it. We find that a lot of our when we talk about school counseling or do school counseling trainings, I have been shocked at the amount of school counselors who don't have a good relationship with their administrator. And it may not even be a really good, it may just be there's not a relationship. They're just here, do your rounds, and, leave me alone. So I think I love that fearless piece, and even backing up and saying, this is what my job is. This is what I can do for you. This is how I can help you reach your goals. And we've seen people come back to us and say, that really works when you back up and you put yourself in their shoes. And this is how I can help you move our school forward. It changes everything.
That is absolutely correct. And what I've been thinking about here recently is, like, I'm a big Wicked fan. I've seen the stage presentation several times. I've seen the movie now. And what keeps coming back to me is that none of us think that we're doing things wrong. Like, our administrators don't think they're in the wrong place. We don't think that we're in the wrong place. And so it just kind of hit me the other day that I was like, here's the thing, friends. One of us is Glinda and one of us is Elphaba. But the thing is that if we want to defy gravity, we're going to have to get through the loathing first. We have to.
Loathing?
Yeah.
Sorry. As if we couldn't love him more, Kim, right?
Hey, I've got a plane ticket. I was just buying it right now. Back to Missouri.
But we have to learn how to work together and how to navigate what each other is thinking, because we're all working together for our students. So how do we get past the feelings that we have around each other so that we can develop that relationship? And you know what? We may not end up being best friends at the end of all of this, but if we can at least remove the barriers that allow us to work together, there's so many things that can be done.
And will be changed for good.
Yes. Unlimited.
I did it.
He said unlimited. So it just keeps going. I couldn't be happier.
I love it.
See what I did there? Okay, we're going to stop. So your experiences, and we may have already kind of talked about this, but have the things that you've experienced changed over the years, of like where you started with your advocacy and where you are now? So how have you grown into what you are now as far as advocating for school counselors?
Yeah, so when I first started really speaking up for myself and others, I really felt like it was an opportunity for me to repeat all of the curriculum from my graduate program. And so, I would go into an administrator's office and I would be like, so, there's really these 4 components that we work in, and it's through these 3 lenses. And, at some point they just start their eyes are glazing over and they're thinking about all the other things.
Drool, little drool.
Yes. And so we actually had an opportunity to meet with representatives from an administrators group through our counseling association. And we were expressing to them the concern and the frustration of like, we feel like people aren't really listening to us. And they said, well, here's the thing. It's not that we're not listening to you, but you do understand when you come to see us. Like you come to see us when you're available. And you walk in my door and I've got 3 discipline referrals on my desk. I've got a teacher who decided to go like off script for the day. There's a parent calling me and you're wanting me to solve everything right then and there. And they're like, that's not going to work out. And again, if this is becoming a thing of that you're not going to own any piece of this, but you just want me to fix it, like additionally, that's not going to work out either. And so one of the things that they really recommended was, let's find a time where we can really sit down and talk. Like, can you come in during the summer? Can we have lunch? Can we do something like that? And so it was about this time that I attended a workshop at the ASCA conference where they were talking about RAMP. And I was like, this could be a good thing. I'm glad they started this. So, you know, I'm taking notes, and all of the conversations that I've had are starting to rattle around in my brain, and I'm thinking about things. And so finally what I did is I got together with my teammates and I said, all right, here's the deal. Everybody needs to clear their day for whatever day in June it was going to be. And I said, we're taking our administrator to lunch and we're paying. And they're like, what? And I'm like, listen, I'll pay. I don't like, it's not, we're not going to go anyplace fancy. I mean, we're just going to go to the sandwich shop and we're going to eat something. And we had taken everything that we learned about RAMP in terms of like, let's set a program goal. Let's think about where we want to be on down the road. Let's really think about the results that we want to have from where we are now. And so somebody had a hotspot on their phone. We were able to pull up our presentation, and, you know, while we were waiting on the pizza to show up, we actually went through our presentation. We talked about, here's where we are and here's where we'd like to go, but we can't do this until we start moving some of the other pieces around. And that really allowed him an opportunity to reflect and to think about what we could do, and to really go like, well, what are my goals as an administrator, and how are we working together with that? And I would say, if anything, like just within probably the last 5 years even, that's been the biggest aha for me, is that as we start setting program goals for our program, I go to my administrator first and I say, what do you want to change for this next year? And then how do we tie into that?
That is so wise.
That's a game changer.
Yep.
Yep.
If
There's the
you're
game changer.
I think that you need to rewind this and listen to all of that again, because there was so much wisdom in what you just said. And so that's huge. Yeah.
Well, here's the thing. I've talked about this a lot. Like, I've done several presentations on this and I've talked with groups. And I think what's so interesting to me is that we hear a lot of times from school counselors about how they can't get to the pieces of their program because they're having to do so many other things that really aren't within the scope of the school counselor. And we'll go through all of these like suggestions or best practices or thoughts, that type of thing. And without fail, there'll be at least one person who'll pull me aside after the presentation and they'll say, you know what, that's all great, but listen, I really don't mind doing it. So like, it's not a big deal for me. And I still remember when I did this presentation at our state association and somebody said, you know what, this is really good information. You know, the principals have their conference at this same place. It's where we were there at the lake. You know, it's really the only hideout in the state of Missouri where you can get all educators to go to. And so they're like, they have their same conference down here. They're like, does anybody come and talk to them about these things? And I said, well, I'm sure that our state association works on that. And like, there's probably presentations that are being done. But I said, I think you hit on something that we really need to think about. And that is, we come down here and we talk about So how are we getting these things accomplished? How are we doing them? Your administrators are doing the same thing. And they're sitting around too going, wow, like I'm really struggling with this. How do you get this done in your building? And there's some administrator that's saying, well, my school counselor does it because you're allowing for it to happen. And I said, friends, it only takes one of us. It only takes one of us not to hold to the program that we were trained to do. And what I said to them was, if you're not advocating for your appropriate role, you're advocating for my inappropriate one.
Ooh.
Yeah,
and I don't know where that came from. Like it just
That needs to be on a shirt.
it does. That is so powerful. And I think that when we were all talking about the 504, because we've had the same thing. We've had people that will fight you to keep doing that, but
Yes.
that's their comfort zone.
Yeah.
They like being, but you're not doing the role of a school counselor if all of your energies are in the things that make you feel comfortable, like your PBIS team or MTRTI or whatever you call that team, or your 504. And if you want to be all those things, it's a different role. But we have so many people who are comfortable in that role. And I think you answered a big question of how do we counteract that? But what you're saying is right. It was brilliant.
Yeah.
You're brilliant.
Oh, well, there's my moment today. We're good. So
yeah, there you go. There you go.
But I think that like that's what's so frustrating to me is that there is that comfort level in doing the things that we shouldn't be doing. And part of that comfort level resides in because we are scared to go and say, like, I shouldn't be doing this. And I've told counselors over the time, like I said, here's the thing. I'm not trying to take 504s away from you. I'm not trying to take testing away from you. I'm not trying to take all these things that you like away from you. What I am trying to do is to ensure that you're doing your appropriate role within them. Like we are student advocates, number one. We do have an appropriate role in all of these pieces, but it's better for me to go and be a voice for the student at the 504 meeting than it is for me to go and say, really as a school, we can't do this. It is better for me to make sure that our students feel like they're ready to take standardized testing than it is for me to go and say, all right, open your booklets to page 1. We're going to fill out the information sheet today.
Yeah.
Like there's a better way to use me. Yeah.
I would like to sneak a question in about advocacy. It's not necessarily about, well, I guess it could be about Fearless, but we are right on the cusp of National School Counseling Week.
Mm-hmm.
And there are a lot of counselors out there who ask the question, why do I have to do this? We talked about that there at the beginning. And so you see ideas floating around this time of year of here's what I do for the teachers. Here's what I do to bring awareness. So what would you say to those counselors who are asking the question, why do I have to advocate for my role? Shouldn't this be a week set aside to recognize me? Because we see that a lot. We answer that question a lot. What would you say?
So I hope that others do recognize you, but that's not what this week is for. And so this really is a moment for you to draw a light to everything that you do. It is a moment for you to draw a light to everything that your program can do or can be. And so, what I struggle with the most and what I look at is that, do you ever get moments in your real life where people come up to you and say, would you please talk about yourself?
It makes those moments, but the rest of us know.
It's not happening. And this is that 1 week in the year where you're given permission to talk about shamelessly everything that you do as a school counselor, because we need to have awareness around the role of the school counselor. We need to have the awareness around the program, and we need to have awareness of what it can do for our students. I think that, Dr. Geisler says this a lot, and he just really, he's such a great person. But he is from Missouri, like that probably helps. But anyway,
Yes,
So,
no doubt. No doubt.
but he talks so much about like, what are you focusing on? Are you focusing on a program? Are you focusing on a position? And for those school counselors who show up every day and just become a name badge, we're missing out on so much. We are implementing a program. If you're showing up to work every day and you're just going, well, I'm just going to see what happens today, like whatever hits my door, that's not what it's about. Our role should really be about being able to show up to work every day and going, it's something unexpected might happen today, but we have the procedures and the protocols put in place to address it because I'm working with a school and a community where we're tying everything together to meet the needs of our students here.
So well said.
You are wonderful. Your school is so lucky to have you. Missouri's so lucky to have you. ASCA's so lucky to have you. You really are well spoken, and you are a great advocate because it's just pearls of wisdom, Geoff, coming out of your mouth.
Well, I'm going to make sure my wife listens to you say all of that, but I appreciate it.
All the things.
Hey, and to your wife, this would not be our first restraining order. So if she feels the need, then we'll just add it.
Unfortunately. Oh, thank you. So is it before we let you go, which we promised me we would, is there anything else that you wanted to share or say that maybe we didn't ask?
Well, I think the only thing I think that I would put out there is like what I've said before, this was not always the Geoff that you have in front of you. Like we have come a long ways. And if anything, I think that I would want people to understand that my focus in working in leadership has always been, I want people to look at me and to be able to go, okay, well, if he can do it, like I know that I can too. And that's just what I want them to see. I mean, the thing is like when I first started teaching, my very first teaching job, I lived in a senior citizen community. Like I don't think people look at me and think that now, but like my neighbors were people in their 80s who were home all day because there was just no place else to live. Like I had to start someplace. And so I was living in the senior community, and those are some of the nicest neighbors ever. I rarely had to bake for myself.
I bet.
But I think I want people to know and understand that like they have the ability to do all of these things. The things that I'm saying to you, there's nothing special about the mind of Geoff Heckman that knows to say these things. We all have the power and the ability to understand that. There is a journey that happens, and it is a journey of growth. But if we're not willing to ever step into that journey, we're not ever going to step into the fear.
Mic drop.
Mic drop. Waiting for the book to come out. Waiting for the book to get started. Or have you started, Geoff, your book?
That I may have to retire first.
I hear you.
You already heard what all he's got going on. Let's give him a minute to get that written.
Let's give him a minute. All right. Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming on and sharing all of these, like Kim said, pearls of wisdom. We have all these pearls ready for a necklace because of everything you've shared with us today. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you for having me. Like truly, it is an honor and a highlight to be able to be a part of what you two are doing. Like I have heard the testimonies of individuals whose lives have changed because of the Counselor Accents podcast. And so you are definitely a ray of light in a lot of people's lives. And I think that's wonderful. And I'm so grateful that we have you. I tell people a lot of times that I'm a ray of light too. It just happens to be that I'm a black light. So I'm really showing the things that you don't want to see. But we're all rays of light in our own way, right?
There we go. Thank you for your words of affirmation. That's what keeps us going. We appreciate it. And we look forward to seeing you in person.
Yes, same here.
Well, he was amazing.
it is so funny. And I don't, I just looked at my phone and it said, stop hitting on the guest. I don't
Okay.
appreciate that.
I sent you that because you were embarrassing me, and his wife is going to be listening. I wish you wouldn't throw yourself at the feet of our guests.
Well, I'm just going to say it. I'm in love. Geoff Heckman is amazing.
He is amazing. He is amazing.
And when he did the Wicked reference, I was gone.
It was over.
Come on.
Yeah. Yep. Do you have on fake eyelashes right now? Because
I don't.
But your eyes are closed. So either it's past your bedtime or the only other time I saw you looking like that was when your eyelashes were so heavy they were weighing your eyes down.
Well, I had switched to my phone, so I don't know if that is making I want to think that that's it, and not that my eyes have now just officially closed.
Okay. Well, we just appreciate Geoff coming on and sharing his wisdom with us. That was so good. I hope it gave you some fresh ideas on how to advocate for your role, especially into National School Counseling Week.
That man knows how to advocate.
Yeah, he does. Yeah. So, as always, we would love it if you would like us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram, and right now you can sign up for our Behavior Detour Conference. It is going on for a little bit longer, so snag a ticket to that. They are $65, but you get 20 hours of professional development credit with lots of content of people talking about stories, strategies, and just general solutions to the behaviors that we're seeing in the trenches these days. So sign up for our Behavior Detour Conference. It's going to be so much fun. You have access from February 7th through December 31st.
Some of the best speakers in the country. All educators need this. It is wonderful.
Our second year to do it. Our first year was such a huge success, and we had so much great feedback from it. We decided to do it again. So we are excited to bring these solutions to you. So sign up, and I hope to see you there. Until next time.
Until next time.